The Ohio Supreme Court rules August will be special. Welcome to Columbus on the Record. The August election to decide whether to make it harder to change the Constitution is on. In a split decision, the Ohio Supreme Court ruled state lawmakers can overrule a law they just passed. That law made August elections illegal except if they were to address a fiscal emergency. This is not a fiscal emergency. The question, if passed, would require future constitutional amendments garner a 60% majority. It's an effort to thwart a possible November vote to enshrine abortion rights in the Constitution. Joe Ingles, what was the majority's reasoning for going around this state law that was just passed?
Well, they said that this law is legal and that there's no reason that it can't be applied. And we have seen the other side saying, well, specifically there needed to be, some sort of law or something as a vehicle for this August election, but the court's not buying that.
Mark, this basically is saying, and Frank LaRose said this week, that yes, we have a law, but this law does not apply to state lawmakers. That doesn't seem to make sense.
Well, it does when you think about it this way. State lawmakers made a law. They get to make another law. I practice at the Supreme Court all the time. I know these justices. They constantly put in their opinions. We defer to the General Assembly on what the law is. And so you can hit them politically for changing their minds, and that's already happening. But the ultimate decider of what the law is, of course, is our state Senate, our state House.
Herb, the Constitution does say that this is the purview of the state legislature to set an election whenever they want. So there is a legal justification for it.
Yeah, but it's also very political. And I'm sure if the court had been a 4-3 Democratic majority, the ruling would have been 4-3 that you cannot hold the election in August.
You say.
Yeah.
Pat Fisher, we thought he might be the swing vote. He voted with the majority, but he did not sign off on their opinion. Mark, how unusual is that, and does that give us any indication that maybe he wasn't totally in favor of this?
Yeah, I mean, I know Justice Fisher pretty well. He's a thoughtful person. They all are. They all have their internal reasons for what they do. It's the final number that counts. And we're going to have an election. You know what? And the people are going to decide. And, that's not a terrible thing. The people will decide.
But is it unusual for it to have no opinion, not sign up, to vote with the majority, but not sign on to their opinion?
They don't do it a lot, but they do see it. People sometimes don't like the reasoning. You might be surprised. I won't talk about this Supreme Court, but in other courts, they don't like the writing style of one of their justices, and they agree with the result, but they don't like the way they said it. And so they've got internal politics about who agrees with who.
Herb, do you agree? Do you think that was the reasoning? We don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it is surprising that he did not concur or offer a separate, thought-out reason. He just, as I understood it, voted yes.
So now what? Joe, the campaign is clear to go. I think maybe both sides were waiting before they invest a whole lot of money in a campaign that may not have been necessary had they canceled this election. But now the campaign is on.
Yeah, they're both ready to go. The losing side said they're doing it. They're working on it right now, and we know that the people who are backing this have been at it for a while. So I that's where it is. It's a fight over the amendment itself now.
Mark, how is this campaign going to be different than is one issue on the ballot? It's in August. It's statewide. So you're not going to have, people aren't going to be turning out to vote for other things. It's the middle of summer, vacation season. What's this campaign going to look like from a strategist standpoint?
Well, most elections are about persuasion and turnout. A summer election, if you want to win, is about turnout. You already identify who's going to be on your side and then have to convince them on an odd month, unusual month, to come out and vote. Now, of course, in Ohio, we have voting month. We have early voting, we have absentees. There's lots of ways. The notion that people are on vacation for the whole summer and can't vote is rather silly. There'll be plenty of opportunities, but it's going to be very low turnout compared to what we normally see.
Herb, we know what's going on, but we're not normal. And the average person out there is dealing with other things. They're dealing with rising inflation, vacation plans, getting their kids into summer camps, planning their retirements. How hard is it to get folks to pay attention to this?
It'll be difficult, but I think both sides realize, as Mark said, it's a turnout election, and you've got to start targeting your supporters. For the people who are against the amendment, they're very frustrated. universities and colleges will not be in session. It's a lot easier to reach students when they're on campus, but now they're all distributed all over the state. But there still are ways, and in fact now there are ways through mail to get absentee voting done. There are other ways online to get people. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of messaging they can send to which people, how often they have to send it, and what are the appeals. How scary are the appeals to get people to vote yes or to vote no or whatever. And I think it will not be a terrible turnout. It'll be in double digits. But,
Yeah, right.
But the question is, does it get above 20? Does it
Teens
get
or
above,
20s? That's the big question. Teens or 20s?
Does it get to 30s maybe? Yeah.
Joe, I would assume the higher the turnout, probably the better chance of this getting defeated.
Yeah, that's the wisdom. That's usually always the wisdom, is that the higher turnout's better for Democrats, and the Democrats are definitely against this. But you've got to remember there are a lot of Republicans who are coming out against it, former AGs and former governors, and we also see a lot of businesses who are defecting from the major business groups that have supported this. The businesses themselves are coming out and saying, you know, we're not for this either. So it's going to depend on how they mobilize the voters. I mean, that's going to be the key.
You know, Mark, I'm not a strategist, don't want to be a strategist, but if I were trying to convince a rural Ohio voter to vote against this, I would put a mailer in their mailbox that says, Mike DeWine wants to take your vote away. Because a lot of folks they're not too keen on this, because it will hurt them down the road for other issues they want. Vaccine mandates, for instance.
Yeah, this cuts both ways. When special interests can build their own profit into our Constitution by getting something passed statewide, it could be from the left or the right. We already saw special interests guaranteeing their profits, the gambling industry. And so there are arguments being made for liberals and conservatives that there are people out there who want to take the policy that you disagree with and enshrine it in our Constitution.
So, Herb, is there a danger if either side ties this directly to the abortion debate? If the folks who support abortion rights say this is a way to protect those rights, and those who oppose it say this is the way to continue your fight?
That will be out there. If it's not overt, it'll be covert. So that you can't deny that. It will be there. But I think also the no side has an advantage in saying they're taking away your right to vote. You're sending more power to Columbus. And I think that might have more appeal across the board, conservatives and liberals, because that's really effectively what it does. It's saying it's more difficult for you to exercise a right that you had in the past, but now, in fact, it'll be much more difficult with a 60% majority and signature requirements that are unbelievably tough.
Speaking of signatures, the folks who want to put the abortion rights issue on the November ballot have just a few weeks left, just a couple weeks left till July 5th to turn in their signatures. Joe, what have we heard about how that is going?
Well, they say that they are getting the signatures. They say that they will have them. We are seeing, you know, where there have been messages out to their supporters saying, hey, get your petitions in. We want to look through them, you know, kind of get them all in order. So it's likely that when they come in, a good number of them should be good if they're actually checking them as they say they are.
Mark, there was a Gallup poll came out this week, shows growing support for abortion rights. The one number that struck me and struck others is that 69% of Americans, this was a nationwide poll, 69% say abortion should be legal in the first trimester, the first 12 weeks. Does that should be a warning even to folks who want the 60% threshold, that, you know, by November it could be enough to get over that 60%?
Could be. Here's what we know about abortion polling. It all depends on how you ask the question. Most Americans are kind of in the middle.
Yeah.
Very few Americans want all abortions out, and very few Americans take the extreme Democrat position, which is anything goes up until the 9th month. So the polling is often driven by that. I think what'll be interesting about the petitions that we just mentioned, I want everyone to look out in the sky the day the petitions are filed. You'll see parachuting lawyers coming in who will do nothing but going to check all these signatures to confirm that they're correct. That'll be the next big fight. It's always the big fight. It's nothing new, but the signatures, there'll be doubles, there'll be triples, there'll be petitions poorly drafted, and so the battle of the election lawyers is the next big battle.
And they do have that 10-day grace period to work that out.
There are relatively few pro-choice Democrats or pro-choice people who are advocating for abortions in the 9th month.
Other than the Democrat platform.
But should these supporters of abortion rights have made this amendment more limiting than it is? Had they said just first trimester, it's legal without without exceptions, then later on exceptions for the health of the mother.
Yeah.
Would that have been a safer bet?
That certainly would have been safer, but the question becomes, what is the magic number? Is it 12 weeks, 15 weeks, 17 weeks, 22, 24? And I think, they certainly said the outer limit would be the second trimester. You would never think about anything beyond that unless you're talking about the health and life of the mother or whatever. But, surely the lower in a sense, the number of weeks allowed, probably you still would have had support for it. But the opposition, a lot of the opposition said, no, 12 weeks isn't, that would still be too much.
Yeah, I mean, if
you're
I'm-
not going to dampen the opposition to a 12-week versus a 24. You may heighten the opposition if it goes to 20 or 24 weeks. But
Yeah. All right. August is on. We shall see. The Ohio Senate flexed its conservative muscles this week as it approved its version of the state budget. The Senate plan includes a $3.1 billion in tax cuts. The Senate plan would spend less money on social programs than the governor or the Ohio House proposed. The Senate budget would make major changes in education policy for K through 12 schools. It would give policy control to the governor and the legislature. It would make taxpayer-funded private school vouchers available to all families in Ohio. For higher ed, it would ban diversity training at public colleges and universities, as well as require professors to create classrooms free from bias. Joe Ingles, the House budget got a lot of Democratic votes when it passed. This budget did not.
This budget had 0 Democratic votes. It passed purely along party lines. And you've got to remember that this is going to go back to the House, and the House is going to say, And so then it's going to go to a conference committee where they're going to have to hammer out the differences. Now, we did get an indication from Finance Chair Matt Dolan. He said basically the strategy is going to be to get enough Republicans in the House and enough Republicans in the Senate to pass this. He's not looking to Democrats to pass it. And you could theoretically do that, but you've got to remember that the Ohio House has had some problems because there is a fraction of, there's like a group that's for the speaker and a group that's against the speaker, and they kind of disagree. So sometimes something that looks like it might be an easy lift isn't so easy.
Herb Asher, the state is flush with cash. We have a big, huge rainy day fund that's overflowing. This tax cut appears to be evenly distributed. What's wrong with giving $3.1 million back?
Well, you could argue there's nothing wrong with it.
We agree.
That it's a wonderful political statement. It's a way for the Republicans to have something to unite behind. And the real challenge here is if, in fact, you can support other public services at a level that really is more than sufficient, and you still have a surplus, then in fact you can say, why not do a... Now, the other argument would be, well, keep it in the rainy day fund. Someday the economy is going to go down the tubes again, and so have more money there. But this is, right now, I don't hear a lot of people arguing against this on the grounds that you're shortchanging other public services. Now, the House will insist on more money being spent for certain services, and I assume they'll come up with a compromise. What's interesting is that all these things have gotten loaded together into the budget. So you actually have the primary and secondary stuff in the budget and the higher education. And once again, this is sort of a reflection of actually sending more power to Columbus. And that's a broader overarching issue that's happening here in Ohio.
Mark, should the policy be in this budget? Senate President Huffman basically said it's for convenience. We put it in here. We don't have to come back in August in the fall or next year when lawmakers are running again, preparing for the primary. But is that the way to run the railroad?
Traditionally, this all gets done in the budget, which gets done in odd-numbered years for a reason, because people in the legislature are running for re-election. This happens around the country. It's nothing new, but there's a lot of focus on the State House right now. They can get a lot done fast, and they're cleaning up portions of the revised code that need to be cleaned up. It's going to be a gigantic bill that finally passes on June 30.
But there are certain issues that probably deserve more independent attention, including issues related to primary and secondary and to higher education, rather than lumping them all together. I think, Senator Huffman, who's a very skilled politician, when you ask him, why are we doing this? Part of the answer is because we can, and it is more convenient. Sure. But that convenience is not the thing that should dominate how you handle certain major policy issues.
Joe, the governor does have a line item veto power. Any indication from him? It's early still because we don't have the final product, but any indication from him or his office which items he does not like right now?
No, he's not giving any indications outwardly, but if you watch, you can see his budget and see what was important to him. Those are the things he's going to be looking for in the budget. And if there's something that goes against those policies, those priorities for him, yeah, line item veto might be.
And he's part of that negotiating process. It is the House and the Senate.
Yeah,
but
it's like
they
a
have
chess game. I love that the fact that the governor has the line item veto, but he has to remember when he comes back to the legislature for his future legislation, if he's lined out one particular senator's important bill, that's comes back around. So it's a careful decision that every governor has to make.
You know, I noticed that Matt Dolan became a major spokesman for the budget, and he's describing it as a conservative budget, and he's also a candidate in the Republican primary for the U.S. Senate. So I think it's very good politics on his part to be associated with a budget that will be Republicans will be very happy with.
Speaking of national politics, Ohio lawmakers are reacting in different ways to former President Trump's indictment for hoarding classified documents at his Florida home. Democrats, like Senator Sherrod Brown and Congresswoman Joyce Beatty, took the President Biden approach and said nothing. Governor DeWine said justice will be done, and he noted he has not endorsed anyone for president yet. Congressman Mike Carey accused the Biden administration of weaponizing the government against President Trump, and Senator J.D. Vance took that a step further.
So I've announced today that I will be holding all Department of Justice nominees that Merrick Garland will use, if confirmed, not to enforce the law impartially, which is his duty, but clearly to harass his political opponents. I think that we have to grind this department to a halt until Merrick Garland promises to do his job and stop going after his political opponents.
Now, it's largely symbolic, those nominees we'll get through. It'll just take a longer time. Mark Weaver, you worked for the Justice Department in your career. Is this the right way to go, politicizing this and accusing them of politicizing it?
Everyone in D.C. is accusing each other of politicizing things while they all politicize things. Listen, I think we can hold two notions in our head at the same time. That if Donald Trump broke the law, he'll have to be held accountable. That's just true. And that the leader of the Justice Department, Joe Biden, runs the Justice Department, happens to indict his most likely opponent in the next election. A lot of Americans think that looks like a banana republic.
Should he be exempt if the evidence in this indictment is he's on tape telling someone who is not cleared to see them a classified document? He says, actually his words are, hey, look at this.
Sure.
So should he be exempt because he's running for office?
No, not at all. When I prosecute cases, which I do around the state, and I hand up indictments, I hope the press reports on them with such zeal as they do this indictment, because indictments are simply allegations from a grand jury. That's a very low standard. But I'm not going to make his defense because I don't know his defense. What I do know is that Hillary Clinton, of course, was given a pass in the middle of a presidential election for digital records that Jim Comey himself said that probably our enemies got access to them. That's what he said in this press conference. No one said that about Donald Trump. They're in his
also
bathroom.
said no reasonable prosecutor would take this case to a
Yeah,
grand
and we
jury.
now found out he's deep down a Democrat and a big supporter of Hillary Clinton and a big opponent of Donald Trump. And so without respect to the legal case, which really ought to be heard in due course, is Americans are right to question whether the Biden Justice Department ought to be targeting their most likely political opponent.
Sure.
That is the most political interpretation, which is what everybody's doing these days. But I think actually the brilliant person here is Donald Trump. He has behaved outrageously and behaved illegally. It still remains to be convicted and all of that. But he knows that by going after the Justice Department and Biden, you will in fact put a lot of pressure on leading Republicans to in fact endorse you, say you're being treated unfairly, which then sends a cue to a lot of other Republican grassroots people. Poor Donald Trump is being victimized here. And you know what that does? That enhances his presidential campaign. And I really do think here that a number of the Republicans, now a few Republicans who are running for president, Asa Hutchinson and Chris Christie and somebody else who were negative about Trump, but all the others are really reinforcing Donald Trump. And even when they say both things, Mark, when they say, well, he's guilty, but it should go to court and his guilt or innocence is to be determined, but the Justice Department is weaponizing. I'm sorry, the Republicans are hearing poor Donald Trump, and all that's doing is poll numbers are going up in Republican primaries, and
Joe, every candidate for office in 2024, especially a Republican candidate, is going to be asked, should Donald Trump be pardoned? if he is, even before he's convicted, a la Richard Nixon. That's going to be a major issue for all these folks to have to answer.
Yeah, you know what this reminds me of a lot is Spiro Agnew back in those days, and the way the public reacted around that. It's like people jumped in with political, this is a political thing, and then later we found out that there was something to it, and he resigned. But the thing is that, how people perceive this is important, and people are not sitting there reading that indictment. You said it earlier. We read things, we know what's going on, we're not indicative. And so I think, people are going to be relying on whatever's being said by people that they respect.
Mark, I recently listened to a podcast called Crooked City. It traces the Youngstown.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah.
Jim Traficant did this exact same thing. He won the first time,
Yes.
but he was convicted in federal court the second time. But when he was charged both times, he said the government's out to get me, it's a witch hunt, and he demonized the Justice Department. Is that not dangerous to our system?
Well, it's only dangerous if it's not true, right? Because we really do know there was not a Russian memo that said Donald Trump was colluding with Russia. We know now for sure that didn't happen, yet the Justice Department and the FBI ran around and told judges that in fact it was happening, which were lies. So just like the Church Commission in the 70s came in and said something's wrong in the CIA, we need to make some reforms, the FBI, which I served with at the DOJ, there needs to be a modern day church commission.
Okay, let's get to our last topic. Remember East Palestine? The national news crews have left, national politicians have left, but the contamination remains near the site of that toxic train derailment and fire. Fear of the contamination's health effects remains as well. Some families have not returned to their homes. Others are having their kids live elsewhere for now. The state of Ohio has announced help for businesses affected by the accident. The state will offer zero-interest forgivable loans to businesses hurt by the derailment. The loans could be as much as $1 million. Businesses would not have to repay them if they use the money for business expenses like employee salaries, rent, or decontamination. Herb Asher, generous program by the state. You could argue it's very worthwhile, but shouldn't Norfolk Southern be offering these loans or offering the aid, which they are somewhat?
Yeah, I would hope that Norfolk Southern would actually step up to the plate and be more generous in a variety of ways. But what I find interesting is that unlike a lot of other tragedies or calamities or whatever, where the news media, national and state, are all present, and then 4 days later they've forgotten about everything. My sense, and Joe and Mark can help me on this one, my sense is there's more ongoing coverage of what's happening in East Palestine, and thank goodness for the actually for online and TV and newspapers. So they've not gone out of our memory. We still are seeing what's happening, and the state does seem to be stepping up, and that reminds us that the problem has not been solved. So it's a tragedy, but I think it's not a tragedy that we've put out of our minds.
Joe, why do you think that is? I mean, usually folks helicopter into a place, but then the next tragedy comes and we move on to that.
Well, I think this one has a little more staying power because there are bigger issues here. We know that the train derailments are not just East Palestine, they're all over the place. And so people are looking at what's being done to actually fix the problem. I think one of the things that we're seeing are a lot of residents there who are going to stay engaged. They were down at the State House this week talking about East Palestine and what they need out of it. And I think we're going to hear a lot from them.
Well, this disaster could have a longer lasting effect. Think about a cattle farmer. There's cattle up there. If your herd is contaminated, and perhaps if you have bulls who you sell to be able to make new cows, your entire line could be gone. That's a lot of money, not just for your current head of cattle, but for future head as well.
This loan program helps businesses. There is some help for residents as well, but should homeowners be available to these loan programs if they buy a new house because theirs is in that zone? And where is the zone?
Yeah. Well, I think homeowners, and I'm not a banker, but I would say that homeowners, if the value of their property has declined dramatically because of the consequences of the derailment, something should be done to make them whole. If not whole, at least to let them know that they still have an asset in their home.
Sure.
Do you expect the attention to continue, or 6 months from now are we going to forget, do you think, Joe?
I think it will continue on some level. It might not be as prevalent as it is today, but I think it will continue, and I think that the people in East Palestine are going to make sure it continues.
Do we have to give some credit to Donald Trump and his elevating the attention to rural America?
Well, this is why it's an interesting story for many people, is because this is a long forgotten segment of our country, and it's a smaller story that tells a bigger story. These people were minding their own business when this train derails, and their way of life has been changed forever. So it's an interesting story.
And for whatever reason, the politicians flocked there, which is good news for the residents to help them cope with this. Time now for our final off-the-record parting shots. Mark Reeve, you're up first.
I saw an interesting news item this week that your viewers will love. You know, ESG, environmental social governance, is supposed to help you decide what companies to invest in that are socially and ethical. Some of the highest scoring companies on that scale, tobacco companies, scoring in the 90s on a 100% scale. So perhaps not as ethical as maybe they seem.
Herb.
I think East Palestine will have the long-term benefit of making us sensitive to what's happened in other parts of the state, whether it's chemical dumping in streams in southeastern Ohio or other kinds of incidents. So that, I think, will be a positive benefit down the road.
Okay. Joe Ingles.
I think the place to watch this coming week will be the Ohio House. We're going to see a lot of controversial legislation coming through there. I would bet there will be protest, and I will bet that there will be things that we don't even know will happen. So that's where all eyes should be there.
Yeah, transgender rights obviously front and center at the House this week. This week, media outlets asked for an exception to the federal court ban on cameras in the courtroom to document the Trump arraignment. If there was ever a case where cameras were essential to the public's understanding of the proceedings and evidence, the United States versus Donald J. Trump is it. Let's hope future proceedings will be available for all to see, not just those in the courtroom and the overflow rooms, which are served by a camera. Imagine that. That is Columbus on the Record for this week. Continue this discussion on Facebook, and you can watch us anytime on your time at our website, wosu.org/COTR, or on the PBS video app. For our crew and for our panel, I'm Mike Thompson. Have a good week.